tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting. Shout out to Inside Fighting.
We are back. It is the Fight Season podcast. It's me, Jesse Rowe with Inside Fighting. We're back in studio, and I'm here with my main man, Andrew Capucetti. And live in Brazil, we got Timmy Shoes. What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Good. Timmy, what's going on?
Not too much. Glad to be back. Wish I was there in the studio with you guys.
What happened? Our engineer here, Christian, is telling us I got to speak into the mic more like that. There we go.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I appreciate it.
The big story that I want to get on, guys, and it broke yesterday. You know, it's Shakur Stevenson announcing his retirement. There's a lot of debate about how serious he is. Is he just trolling? But, you know, he went on Twitter last night, or X last night, and he says that he's retiring from the sport of boxing, that he doesn't fuck with the game. He doesn't fuck with the game anymore. I'm sure you guys saw the tweet. What was your guys' reaction?
I don't think it's the biggest story, but I think he's just trolling. What? You know what I mean? He's clearly trolling. How old is he? 26 years old? 25? I think he's either 26, undefeated. He's just trying to get a fight. Negotiations are probably going bad with his next fight, and you know, a kid like that, so talented, everyone retires and comes back. He's retiring for about a week. He'll be back.
This is what Teofimo Lopez did too. He said that he was retiring, and now he's got a fight this week, right, or next week? What is it? Yeah,
a couple weeks.
So I was curious as to like where this came from. So I did a little digging on his Twitter, and I think that it looks like it started with this fight that was announced between Emmanuel Navarrete and Denis Berenchik. And when he found out that it was announced, Shakur responded to it by saying, "This is sickening. Shit is disgusting. I might as well retire."
Who did he want to fight? He
wanted to fight Navarrete. That's what it seems like.
But Navarete's not even undefeated, right?
I don't know his exact record, but it seems like that's the fight that he wanted, and so he said, "I might as well retire." That's where I think this is stemming from. And Timmy, I'm going to get to your thoughts in a second, but it made me think about when we interviewed him on the Fight Season podcast. He was talking about how in boxing right now he feels like nobody wants to fight each other, and that he's been trying to push for certain fights, and he just feels like the boxing as a whole is in this sort of this pocket where none of the big names are fighting each other. I think that the tide is shifting on that, but I don't know. That seems to me where this is coming from, that he's just upset that he didn't get this fight, and he feels like he's sort of making a statement with this. Obviously, he's not really retired, obviously.
Right. Well, no, he's retired. I mean, he said he's retired, but it's going to be a short-lived retirement. Listen, Shakur, enjoy retirement, brother. Wish you the best. And, you know, he's just frustrated. He should be fighting Tank Davis or something like that. So he needs another big fight. You know, I respect all these young fighters at 135, 140. They're all calling for the biggest fights. Ryan wants Devin Haney. You know, Devin Haney wants Ryan Garcia. Shakur, I know he wants everybody. We got Lomachenko fighting Kambosos coming up soon. So Shakir's probably just frustrated because he doesn't have a marquee matchup right now. But listen, if I'm giving advice to the young boxer, young stud, is keep your head up. Don't even worry about it. You'll have your time in the spotlight again soon. Until then, enjoy retirement. Timmy, what are your thoughts on this situation?
You guys put it perfectly.
Wow,
I think he's not retired. We all know he's not retired. Just, you know, it's a good point that the top guys in boxing, sometimes they have trouble in the contracts getting these fight mades. If Shakur really is retired, which he obviously isn't, but if he is, let him come over to the sport where the best always fight the best. That's MMA in the UFC. He'd sign a contract with Dana White instantly, and then he'd never have this problem again.
Well said.
Sorry. Who do you guys want to see Shakur fight? Like, what do you want his next fight to be? Because there was a lot of people were criticizing him a lot in his last fight, that it wasn't the most exciting performance. I think there was like a record set for the fewest amount of punches landed in that fight or something crazy. I forget the exact stat.
He had an injury.
Right. So, but who do you guys want to see? Because it seems like he's in a division where a lot of it's very top heavy, where a lot of the top names in boxing are stacked in this one division, but we're not seeing a lot of the marquee matchups. So who do you guys want to see him fight next?
Me personally, I always believe I like to see these young athletes stick around for a long time, and I think there's no rush. I'm all about patience. I don't give a fuck if they put him up against a tomato can, a dummy. I just like I like to see these stars in there fighting. I don't care if it's a sparring session at their local gym. I just like to see superstars do what they're best at. I like to see, because they're masters in their craft. So I don't care who they stick him up against. But I know eventually he's going to get a marquee, big name fight. He's going to get a Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, Devin Haney, a Kambosos, a Lomachenko. Shakur Stevenson's more than deserving for a big fight like that. And it'll come. I don't think he needs to rush it. But who do I want to see him next? I just want to see him fight. I don't care who he fights. I'm a fan of him and his skill and technique. That's where I want to see him fight.
One fight that was sort of put forward today that hadn't even dawned on me, because I think they're in two different weight classes, so the likelihood of it happening anytime soon is probably low. But Ryan Garcia was on Instagram Live, and he threw out the idea of fighting Naoya. How do you pronounce his name? Naoya Inoue?
I'm not even going to give it a go, but I think it's Inoue.
Inoue?
No, it's not even Inoue. It's I don't know how to say it.
Japanese superstar. He's like one of the best in the world right now.
I'm the worst at pronouncing names.
Yeah,
you know that.
But he threw out the idea, and he said that it would be one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time. And I just thought about it. Obviously, Garcia's probably fighting around 140 right now, whereas Inoue is 130, right?
I think it's 126.
Yeah.
Actually.
So it would have to be, they'd meet down the line. Ryan would have to cut weight for it. But I thought that would, that's a fight that I would love to see. He said he'd be down to go to Japan, so that's an interesting one that I would love to see.
That's super down the line. A lot of fighters move up in weight. Like Pacquiao was an 8-division champ. So
right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did it at 135 or, later down the line. But
I just like that Ryan was throwing it out there as a possibility. I thought that was cool. I thought that was fun.
That's what's up.
Anything else, Timmy, before we move on?
I'm a little out of the loop. Did the negotiations between Stevenson and Devin Haney fall apart? Because that seemed like the fight that was going to happen. Those guys were on like a crash course, and it never happened. I get that happens a lot in boxing, unfortunately.
I think you're talking about when Shakur stepped in the ring and dogged Devin Haney after his Lomachenko win. That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I don't think they ever had hardcore negotiations.
But they did have some back and forth.
Yeah, that's some back and forth.
That never really came.
Like I said, it'll happen. All these big marquee matchups will happen. Yeah.
We're closer to Ryan versus Haney at this point.
Yeah, Ryan versus Haney's look like that's going to happen. We got Rolly Romero versus Pitbull Cruz coming up on March 30th. So
is that
a lot of good fights?
We obviously don't know yet, but is that like winner fights Ryan? What's
who knows?
Yeah,
Ryan's got to get through Devin Haney, which I think he will. But listen, let's talk about UFC 300.
Yeah, that's what I have that here. And there's obviously, we don't have a main event yet. Timmy and I have touched on this a little bit, but there is like this thing with the fan base where the fan base feels like that this isn't like the most amazing card, because there's talk about, even Aljamain Sterling said that they should swap UFC 299 card with the UFC 300 card. And I was looking at the card the other day, and I'm like, MMA fans are very spoiled, because this card's actually incredible. When we get a good main event, I think this is actually an incredible card. You have something like 10 champions or former champions are on one card. Something like that, which is very rare for a UFC pay-per-view. So I'm actually very excited for it. Cap, who's your dream main event for this card?
It's probably not going to happen because he's a boxer currently. But my dream main event would be Conor McGregor Diaz 3. I would love to see that. But if that one's not going to happen, let's bring in Conor Khabib 2. Let's do Conor Chandler's most likely what's going to be announced. Maybe not. I'm not really into Conor Chandler. I mean, it's a good fight. Listen, I'm into anyone Conor fights, just like I was saying with Shakur Stevenson. I just want to see these guys fight. You put Conor versus anybody.
Timmy, you threw out a few. Remind me of some that you thought were like a possibility.
Yeah, I threw out a few on the last podcast, but I think I've changed my mind a little bit, because I think what's missing, the reason people feel like something is missing, is because there's that superstar lacking at the main event to draw in the casuals. The hardcore fans, they look at this card and they're like, holy shit, like you just said, this card is absolutely stacked. But there's no huge name at the top of the bill, to suck in all of the casual fans. And, other than McGregor and maybe like Adesanya versus Pereira, there's not a lot of fights that they could put on that would really replicate that. And, Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards is a great fight for the hardcore fans, but I don't know if they're going to be drawing in the casuals. So honestly, if I had to pick any McGregor fight, and echoing what Cap said 100%, Diaz versus McGregor 3, that would be an amazing fight.
Yeah, well, Hamza had also posted on his Instagram stories that fight news is coming soon. His name was floated around. Leon said that he was fighting on UFC 300, and the only name that really made sense was Bilal or potentially Islam moving up to 170, just in terms of what UFC would do to put Leon at UFC 300. I don't think that's happening because I think it might be during Ramadan. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think it is.
But it's Pereira Izzy is one that I think has some juice to it, depending on Izzy's return timeline. Because if you're looking at UFC 300 and you want to do something that the fans are genuinely going to say, okay, I am okay with this as a main event, like Cap said, it's either Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor versus anybody, Alex Pereira versus Izzy, Izzy versus Dricus du Plessis. Those seem to me like the ones that I think most UFC fans would be okay. But either way, I just think UFC fans need to shut the fuck up because it's actually a pretty awesome card, and I think that the UFC matchmakers are doing an awesome job. I actually want to look at it, see how many champions are on there because
all of the cards, like 298 is good, 299 is amazing, 300 is amazing. We're getting spoiled this year.
God did.
You got Gaethje Holloway, Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan, Yuri versus Rakic, Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling, Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, Figueiredo versus Garbrandt, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's a stacked card.
6, 7, 8, 9. You got Dana former
White's,
champions
Dana
already.
White's doing a great job.
Yeah.
But listen, we're recording this podcast on a Tuesday. It'll be released on a Wednesday. I think by the time we release this podcast, UFC 300 main event's going to be announced.
Right.
We saw Dana White meet with Dave Feldman from BKFC today. They posted a picture. Dave Feldman said, big news coming.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's no way in hell. I think it has something to do with Mike Perry. Because Mike Perry's like BKFC's biggest star right now. He's former UFC, but there's no way in hell Mike Perry's going to headline UFC 300. No. I don't see that happening.
But
what do you guys think they're meeting about?
He also met with Eddie Hearn, from what I saw. Dana. Apparently, he was also so I wonder if it has something to do with boxing because I do know that Dana wants to step into the boxing realm. Because he's obviously behind what's that kid's name?
Callum Walsh. Shout out Callum Walsh.
Yeah.
That guy's a beast. I seen him this past Saturday. Actually, he's always good vibes.
So
kid has a good head on his shoulders. Smart.
My guess is it has something to do with boxing, but and it is possible he's just working out something to get Mike Perry on a UFC card. Who knows? But
could you imagine if the UFC absorbed BKFC like they absorbed the WEC back in the day, and it would just be like you could have bare knuckle fights in the undercard and then MMA in the main card, sort of like how one does it. That'd be kind of interesting. But you're right, because you're right. Dana White has been wanting to get into boxing for a while, and I think BKFC is growing really fast. So maybe it's a smart business move to merge.
Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of all the possibilities that it could be. What were you gonna say?
I don't know if if merger is the right term, but the UFC would absorb BKFC.
But you're right.
They have the LFA and all that.
Right.
I think you guys are on something with Leon Edwards. He said he's on UFC 300. I think he'll end up. I actually think my prediction is Dana White this week is going to announce Leon Edwards on UFC 300 versus who? Who knows?
UFC fans might lose their mind if it's Bilal Muhammad. I love Bilal. I think he's actually one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC.
I think that's a great fight. Last time it ended with eye poke, right, Timmy?
When they fought the first time, yep.
But is that how you get the name Edward Scissorhands from Colby Covington? Is that where that came from?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question.
I'm pretty sure it is from the eye poke, but yeah, it seems like it would be Leon Edwards. What's your guess that it's going to be before we move on from this topic? What is your guess when they make the announcement what it's going to be?
I think it's going to be Leon Edwards versus, I don't fucking know. Leon Edwards versus somebody.
Just looking at the timeline, who's available, I think, it's either going to be Leon versus Bilal.
I'm hoping it's Diaz Conor, and they're keeping me in the dark and everyone else in the dark, and it's super secretive, hush hush. But imagine a Diaz Conor fight's announced. That's going to be massive. But go on. Sorry to cut you off, Timmy.
Break the internet.
That would be would break the internet. That would probably be the biggest pay-per-view ever because the card's already stacked, and then you put those two superstars at the front. Like that's what the card is missing. That's what we need, a fight like that to draw in everybody. Because right now, all of the UFC fans are drawn in, but I think it's either going to be Leon versus Bilal or Alex Pereira versus somebody or Conor versus somebody, because those are the big stars. Maybe Izzy is in the mix too. Pereira and Izzy, I think, has the only other, like, because they're both stars, right? They're the only other guys that could draw in a casual audience like that.
I saw
But if it's
hilarious.
not McGregor versus somebody, I'd be happy with Leon versus Bilal, but the casual fans are not going
Yeah.
to be.
I saw a hilarious theory that it's going to be McGregor Chandler, but they're going to announce that it's for the first ever 165-pound champion. This whole theory was floating around on Twitter.
I saw that.
Yeah.
What a knee slapper.
Right. Yeah. No. My guess, if I were to say that it's anything, my guess is that Izzy will have a 2-month timeline once he's recovered from injury, like mid-February. And it's going to be Izzy Pereira for the 205 belt for the trilogy. That would be my guess of the fight that they really want to make happen, other than Izzy versus Duplessis. But they might feel like Duplessis is not a big enough star yet to make the headliner for UFC 300. Because Duplessis did say, his manager said he's available for UFC 300. I just don't know if he's a big enough star yet. So
listen, there's actually a lot to talk about. What we're going to do an emergency podcast as soon as UFC 300 is announced, the main event. You guys keep it going. I actually got to run. I have something planned tonight, but I did want to stop by and get in the studio with my man here. Squeeze this podcast in.
Feels good to be back in the studio, by the way.
Feels fucking great. Thank you to the viewers. I know you guys hate me and I come off as super annoying, but I'm just trying to be, keeping it real here with the fans. Love you guys. Listen, I'm out.
All right.
Let me tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting, shout out to inside fighting.